Welcome. So in contemplating tonight's gathering, I had this sense of kind of circular motion, spiral motion, where kind of what I've always said, I have very little to say and I just sort of say the same thing over and over. Sorry. Uh, I was really reminded, I, I, I had this sense of, you know, a question, a living, breathing inquiry of, how does one move beyond um, the world of, mind, intellectual, conceptual self? Because even after awakening, sometimes that particular revolution of being doesn't really actually happen. And so I had this inquiry floating through, and I thought to myself, I want to look in Adya's The Way of Liberation. It's just the best book. I used to hand these out at retreat, and I might start again. um if we had one thing to read. um and but I had it here at the condo in two of the nightstands next to the bed. So I guess I'm hoping that the renters who rent the condo are going to pick up The Way of Liberation. But it was great for me because there it was. I can remember when it dawned, that flash of recognition, that direct flash of recognition where one moves beyond the psychological self, beyond the false self, beyond the referencing, categorizing, dividing self, and the universal presence, the universal being, the uncaused love is returns one home, is recognized, is remembered. And there was this time where it was so obvious that all these mind worlds, they're kind of like bubbles in a bubble bath, 9 billion mind worlds. And every time, two collide, they spawn another mind world. And some gather together in a conglomerate of mind worlds. And, you know what I'm talking about with bubbles, right? And each one is like this contained universe of opinions and beliefs and ideas and justifications and compensations and defenses and divisions. And when that bursts, it's like laying, the greatest burden you've ever encountered down. And one can't believe that one was operating from there, right? But then all the programming, all of the memories and programs and conditions that are part of the wiring of the subconscious naturally flow in to this great intelligence and begin to dismantle and dissolve any sense of self, which is a different shift and a different experience than the initial moving, the popping of the bubble bath bubble of the like, oh, wait a minute. I have been basing my entire self-identity around this psychological process of thought, belief, feeling, thought, belief, feeling, thought, belief, feeling narrative. And I thought that was me, right? That begins to it either goes or it begins to become irrelevant and kind of fade out after you see through it. But then there's this whole other process. Adya calls it a revolution. And I had so much gratitude today, remembering how during that passage from self to communion with the infinite, during that passage, this was invaluable, 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 because something moves our heart to continue through um, a devotion. The Sangha, keeps us on track. Our teacher keeps us on track. Teachings keep us on track. Our own life experience kind of bonks us around and like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm believing. The believer has reassembled. The believer has reassembled, and here it is in shining colors, believing, 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 and here I am in my mental arrogance, doing and doing and doing. So something kind of has to keep us with our to steer our compass, to bring us back. Something other than a moral code or dogma or something, but a path that is true, that nourishes the truth of who one is. And that's unique. That's unique. And yet it's universal. Each life is so preciously unique. It's beyond comprehension. Each life is divinely orchestrated and of value, of inconceivable value, inconceivable value. And yet there are these universal experiences, I guess you might say. So somehow we have to find a way and walk that way, inhabit that way, live that way, that questions our solid assumptions. Because even after awakened experiences, even after you think you have no belief around identity, the intellectual, conceptual, conditioned, collective force of habit that is that mind world can easily co-opt what has been realized cellularly. I mean, it will almost guaranteed give it a shot. Uh, Where is this that I wanted to read about this revolution real quickly? It just can't be said much better than this. The inner revolution is the awakening of an intelligence not born of the mind, but of an inner silence of mind. This is the communion with the infinite that we're pointing to again and again and again, where the conditions of memory and habit are forsaken, abandoned, relinquished, disbelieved. I don't know what word works best for you, surrendered. So that inspiration can flower. The inner silence of the mind alone has the ability to uproot all of the old structures of one's consciousness. Not our thinking about our realization, not our conclusions about what we've remembered and what we've become. An inner silence of mind, which alone has the ability to uproot all of the old structures. And unless those structures are uprooted, there will be no creative thought, action, or response. This isn't dogma. This is just born of Aj's personal experience and here as well. You have kind of have the choice, memory and historical conditions or inspiration, creativity, freshness, beginner's mind. Unless there is an inner revolution, nothing new and fresh can flower. Only the old, the repetitious, the conditioned will flower in the absence of this revolution. But our potential lies beyond the known, beyond the structures of the past, beyond anything that humanity has so far established. Amen. Amen. Our potential is something that can flower only when we are no longer caught within the influence and limitations of these known conditions, beyond the realm of the conceptual mind, beyond the limitations of humanity's conditioned consciousness, all the little bubbles, the bubble bath bubbles, the mind world bubbles, beyond lies that which can be called the infinite, the sacred. And it is from this that a new and fluid consciousness is born and wipes away the old life. Not some program of making ourselves better, having better experiences, becoming a better person, all the rest. It's transmutation, a communion with the infinite. Such an expression is neither personal nor impersonal. It's not spiritual, it's not worldly, but rather the flowering of existence beyond all notions of self. Some of our minds at whatever particular time we might hear that and get really discouraged. But can you hear the hopefulness? This is each and every one of us. This is each and every one of us. And as Sharon was saying at retreat, this is the time. This is the time. So we can hear these beginner's mind, communion with the infinite, and then there still can be the tendency, and it's not to bring ourselves down or to give the ego, feed the ego with our unworthiness. It's just to be sincere. It's just to be sincere about what's going on, to tell the truth about what's going on, so then therefore we can move beyond the habit, the condition. It's not to, bring us down. It's to just be truthful, because we can have an experience of the inner silence of mind in meditation, at retreat, at a beautiful event in our lives, or a very difficult, tragic event in our lives, birth, death, that kind of thing, stands us still. I don't know, maybe it's a amazing ski in the forest where all thought evaporates. There's an inner silence of mind. Maybe it's happening for you more and more and more just as you're going about your daily deal. Aj's description of true meditation. But then something triggers that unconscious habit, that subconscious conditioning. And here we are back in the world of division, 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 division. And so I know that I just am wired the way of giving people a lot of freedom to find their relevant, resonant path, Like here it's, inquiry, meditation, contemplation. Well, those are certainly what works here. But I know, it has to be resonant. I've seen that over and over and over again in almost 15 years of teaching. It has to be resonant for the person, or it doesn't take hold. And there's also a time to everything. There is a season. To everything there is a season. There is also a time to bring in a discipline, a devotion. Uh, I can remember, God, I don't even know how many times, countless times where there has been the realization that the behavior of the mind body, the personality structure, is not being permeated, not living up to the realization. You know? And that gets actually uh, the stakes get higher. Stakes get higher because there comes a time when any movement out of integrity, authenticity, hurts so bad it can't be sustained. It just it the contractedness of that can't be sustained. It's not compatible with the realization, with the level of consciousness that has permeated the cellular structure. It's like drinking toxic waste or something. The effects start being rather immediate. So I guess I just wanted to reiterate that whatever level of consciousness is being reflected through the mind body, we have to be sincere about it. We have to be sincere about that. So if we are still giving allegiance to otherness, which this is a big time. This is a really big time. It's the time of the great turning. We are very fortunate because look at this gathering. We're very, very fortunate to have a way forward that isn't just turning on the evening news and believing every word, taking it as another stance against this stance, this mind world against this mind world, and all of that. But it's a big seduction. The force of habit of the false self. I mean, Aja goes into it very deeply in that book that I've been reading out of tonight. I mean, it's a section called Wake Up or Perish in that book. You know, it's right down to that. So we've been practicing together where we remember in this moment, 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 we remember our deepest understanding, our deepest current understanding of who am I? What is I? And then we reorient to that. We reorient to that because that is that's where the dissolution, where the intelligence that is animating, sustaining, maintaining, giving way as this moment is able to permeate is through this emptiness, no thingness, no otherness. That's where it takes root. And that's where the rewiring naturally, it naturally harmonizes, it naturally evolves, if you want to say that. It naturally sheds the layers of habituated nervous system control and lights up the pathways of inspiration, creativity, freshness. This isn't something that, we don't have the switch. The great mystery lives life as itself. Through the mind worlds more or less diluted. So I think it's a very deeply held habit, condition, even conviction that we're waiting for a better moment, a different moment. I'll be more awake. I'll be better able. The world will be different. the relinquishing, the surrendering of agenda and expectation can be very challenging. Can be very challenging. We can grab on to these mental conceptions of spiritual truths. We can grab on to there may be an experience of inner silence of mind, the grace of that. And then the conceptualization can override it. You know, we still want to hang on to a doingness. Let me try to think of an example. I think it'll be a little bit more clear. Like good and bad, okay? So there's a bad thing happening. That's what the senses say. That's the perception. That's the conditioning. There's this bad thing happening. And it has power. It exists. It's real. And so we have to counteract it through our practice, through our realization, through our betterment with a goodness that is greater than the badness. But do we see how this keeps us in that framework forever and ever and ever and ever and ever? The war of good and bad. More bad, more good, more good, more bad, more they're at battle, and this actually has some power, which is absolutely true in the human mind worlds. Absolutely true in the mind worlds. The 9 billion mind worlds of conditioned thought, habit, belief, rebellion, arrogance, unworthiness. It's absolutely true there. And it can prove itself over and over and over again because it's self-generating, never ending. Something bad happened, so there must be a badness that we need to counteract and interact with and overcome with this, like what we have gained. That's so deeply held, right? Right? The mind is convinced. In this moment, I can feel the mind convinced of that. But what begins to be lived is something quite different than that. Where one understands at a cellular, lived way that as long as this belief is out there, as long as there is a believer to believe the belief, then reflective reality, there it is. Because love is unconditional. There's no rewarding, punishing God, ultimate power that says, well, we'll let that one get through because karmically it's the best thing, and here's the score sheet, and we're keeping track, and yeah, this and yeah, that. No, it's unconditional. It gives way. It serves up the moment. It serves it up. So if we are taking that and forming it through a believer into same as it ever was. If the cookie cutter is historical memory, historical conditioning, ideas of good and bad, ideas of war, then that's what we get. Not because we're bad, not because there's something that wants us to grow through very, very difficult circumstances and war. No, because that's the love. Unconditional love is unconditional love, is unconditional, is unconditional. Here's the moment. Here it is. Here it is. Is it generated and from and as an avenue of no thingness, the void, emptiness, in the infinite, whatever you want to, God, enlightenment, I don't know what word works for you. Or is it a former of belief? How is it informed? Informed. How? And by who? By what? This can never be processed through intellect. It's an absolute dead end. The Yeah, or self-consciousness. It can't be processed through self-consciousness either. Not to despair, because each and every one of us, somehow or another, and I don't know if it was through meditation, but has an innate, natural desire to return to the inner stillness of mind. Especially if you're sitting in this phone call. Especially if you're right here in this gathering. And one has the direct remembrance of that as well. It's just sometimes we have to look for it, because what we're looking for is the, oh, I got it, I lost it. I got it, I lost it. And then we're focused on that. We're like clamped down on it, that it would appear exactly the same all the time. I had this giant awakening in 1979, and now it's not, it doesn't, the world doesn't, the world, blah, 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 blah. And or I took medicine and this is what happened. And now it's supposed to look like that 100% of the time. And what is that belief? That belief is the belief that it comes and goes. So go to that belief and inquire into it. Is that true? Is that real? Where is it now? Who am I? What is I? What is here beyond coming and going? Is it true that it goes and comes? And when that's discovered, then reorient to that. Root, inhabit that, knowing that's natural, innate, inherent, but obscured or unconscious. But in this group, not so unconscious. It's just obscured with excuse me, the nurse comes forward sometimes, it's just the puking out of the rest of the, false self. I say this very precisely. It matters how we see it. As in, matter itself comes into existence as we see it. matter. This isn't even necessarily a spiritual insight, although here it was, but this is quantum physics that has been, they just keep trying to throw mud at the wall to see if something will stick. Particles and waves, relative reality, particles and waves, nothing exists but the breakdown of Newtonian, cause and effect is just very, very difficult condition to bust through. It's conditioned, it's habitual, it's believed, deeply, deeply believed. And I know it doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone, but this is why here I'm more and more and more motivated, drawn, guided, I don't know how to say that, responsive immediacy, immediate responsiveness towards the Aramaic teachings of the man that we call Jesus. I'm not talking about all the stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the physical reality, the perceived physical reality. It matters how we see it. So it's greatly, greatly worth our while to question every belief, question the habits, question the conditions, and continue to ask, what is here? What is true? I ran across something the other day that I hadn't ever heard before from Ramana. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. It's very reminiscent of Byron Katie when she says, there's this business, there is the other business, and there's God's business. Apparently, Ramana said, remember that nothing that happens in the mind is you, and none of it is your business. Amen. Hard one to live. Challenging, right? We're very entertained, incredibly, incredibly entertained by the mind world. The 9 billion mind worlds and their interactions and their conglomerations and their spawn. And, it's endless. It's endless entertainment. I remember the minute this woke up to the arrogance of that. I remember the minute where the dawning of like, whoa, the arrogance of the intellectual conceptual mind. Wow. I'm not against intellectualism or conceptualism when it's in service to the creative intelligence that animates the universe. When it's a faculty of awareness and love rather than conditioned belief and war. Then we have, the beauty of creation in the image of the divine, through a human creation in the image of the divine, which is our birthright. But we're very enamored, we're very unconsciously, it's not a failure, it's not I hope I'm not like seeding despair. It just has to be faced in the passage from self-consciousness, self-reflexiveness, the false self, to the, I don't even know how to talk about, all I can say is to responsive immediacy. From that transition, it has to be faced. It has to be faced. And it doesn't mean that one becomes, what did I hear Audra say one time? Dumber than a doormat or something like that. It doesn't mean that one becomes dumber than a doormat. Oh dear. Our minds will tell us anything to get us to go back to the way it was. Status quo. It might be bad, but it's all I know. There's an intelligence, a wisdom beyond the thinking mind that each and every one of us can take refuge in and begin to do our best to live from and as. So this communion with the infinite is not another trip around the whole like mind over matter. I'm not talking about an individual mind world, one of the bubbles, one of the mind world informers, delusional, divided mind over matter, who all of a sudden, a spiritual ego that is like going to um behave as God and all of that stuff. It's just I very much get that they're, the placebo effect. I mean, it's all over the place. The placebo effect, this kind of thing. We can use our minds to uh attain more and more healthy states of ego. I get that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a complete loss of all of that, where one has an inner silence of mind. Maybe not all the time. I'm not saying you're a terrible person. You should just get off the path and never come back to satsang or meditate or anything like that ever again because your mind isn't quiet. That's not what I'm saying. You can tune into that radio station anytime you like. Here, for some reason, I don't know, that station was unavailable for at least a couple of years. And so there is absolutely no belief left here that it's needed for reality. Oh dear. And I don't really care whether it's on or not. It's like music playing in the grocery store. I don't need the music to be turned off in order to go grocery shopping, to benefit from, the abundance of the universe. The chatter chatters sometimes, but who's listening? What's listening? Go there. Reorient. Go there. And allow, just like, take refuge, come home, return. It will feel, what did Meister Eckhart say? Somebody I'm sure on this call knows. The way feels familiar and enjoyable and free or something like that. I've talked a long way around. I'm hope that and maybe we can talk about it more in the second hour. I hope that there is some kind of either curiosity or understanding or I don't know, spark around this difference. There's a difference between a someone acting as God's agent, rearranging their mind, doing this, doing that, making things better. All good. All good. I'm not like self-help is great. It's just not what I'm talking about. It's just not what this teaching is on fire with. It's not, it can be interwoven with what I'm speaking about. It can be inspired and guided from the deeper intelligence, all the self-help programs. An inner silence of mind, a giving over, a responsive immediacy, a empty infinity from which all possibilities, all potential is available. Just going to read from Aja here to close up, and then we'll come back. We'll come back and hopefully people want to talk a little bit. Where? Oh, I may have lost it. I had it. It was so good about our potential is something that can flower only when we are no longer caught within the influence and limitations of what we think we know. Beyond the realm of the mind, beyond the limitations of humanity's conditioned consciousness, lies that which can be called the sacred. And it is from the sacred that a new and fluid consciousness is born. That fluid consciousness is what I'm calling responsive immediacy. That wipes away the old and brings to life the flowering of a living and undivided expression of being. A living and undivided expression of being. Not a person, an expression of being. Such an expression is neither personal nor impersonal, neither spiritual nor worldly, but rather the flowering of existence itself beyond all notions of self. Yeah, there's some really, really full on appearances right now. Full on. I'm not talking about closing down our hearts. Just give me a little bit more time here. I've been talking a long time, but that's not, it can start sounding like that, like very transcendent. Child rape does not matter. It's all God's will. I'm not saying that, and I hope you don't hear that. What we're saying is that this inner revolution where we stand for truth beyond division, that which is rest in, commune with, connect to, radiate as that which is undivided That is the salvation of the world. If we continue battling good with evil, the evil that actually we believe to have power, it just goes on and on. Now's the opportunity to really move beyond that way of being, that way of seeing, beyond feeling sorry for, beyond pity, beyond what Kenpo Jigme calls idiot compassion, to what's real, the power of empty compassion. In other words, life itself expressing itself in complete and pure and utter harmony. What else would it do left to its own devices? We've come up with a lot of ideas around what it would do. Well, it would reward some, it would punish others. It would come up with schemes of Earth School and this, that, and the other thing. We've come up with a lot of ideas. But who knows what love has in store for us if we can be as that. Freshness, beginner's mind. It's a very immediate experience, a very immediate experience. When it starts getting projected too far out, it doesn't have the capacity. So it's how Adyashanti in this book can say, wake up or perish, and in the very next sentence say, all is eternally well. All is eternally well. And the visions of war and horror are endless as long as the battle of good and evil persists. Okay. I hope some people come back.